So I'm glad you could all be with us today. I thought it would be nice to continue with our theme of nature, and spring kind of ties into nature. So I feel like doing something a little that you don't really think of every time you think of spring, but it's still part of nature, and that is koi fish and lily pads. Because in the spring and summer, the lily pads grow and they blossom, and it's nice to go for a walk at the park or to a pond where there's koi fish and you can see them swimming. If any of you have been to the Japanese gardens in Portland, they have some beautiful koi fish at their pond. So if you want to watercolor your simple version of a koi fish that we're going to draw right now, you should draw it on watercolor paper. You know that koi fish can be like 2 feet long? They get really big and they can live for like 50 years, I think, maybe even longer. So a lot of people like to have them as pets, and they're really beautiful. They have a real shape to them. So we're going to start out making kind of a raindrop or a teardrop curvy shape right there. We're going to put 2 koi fish on the paper. One is small and one is bigger. Maybe it's a baby and a mommy koi fish, or a baby and a daddy, or a little brother and a big sister. So first we have that raindrop teardrop shape on this side, turning this way, and then we're going to do one on the other side of the paper, kind of mirroring it. So this one's the bigger fish, the bigger koi. It's a bigger teardrop, raindrop kind of thing. So they kind of point towards each other and create this nice circular shape. So has everybody got their little teardrop and their big teardrop? Let's go ahead and put a tail on them. This is real easy. We're just going to put a little kind of a leaf shape right there. Just a leaf shape, like you're drawing a leaf. Or almost like maybe like an eyeball shape. We're going to do that on this tail too, but these are going to be a little bigger. Kind of looks like we have 2 eggplants or something, but they'll look like fish soon. We're going to give them some fins, and that might help. So right down here, we're just going to give them some little fins, kind of a triangle shape. Also kind of like a leaf or an ear on a kitty cat kind of. I bet you've all drawn kitty cats before. Kind of like a kitty cat ear sticking out of that fish. And then we'll give the little baby fish some smaller little fins. They kind of look like kitty cat ears. Koi fish, they like to go along the bottom of the, well, I don't have to go on the bottom, but they like to suck in their food. They kind of have big lips that they can stretch out to suck in food. My brother has some pet koi fish, and he says if you put food in your hand and put your hand down in the water, they'll swim right up and suck the food right out of your hand. So let's give them their little sucky lips. So kind of right there, just kind of a little line down, and then go across parallel to the curve on their head. So line down and then up. Be their lips. Now their eyes. So let's give on the side of their head a circle here. And maybe this one's a little more almond shaped because it's turned away from us. So we don't see that eye full on. This eye we see full on, so it's rounder. But this eye we kind of see at an angle, so it's more curved. And then we'll do the same thing for this little fish. Let's see. A little bit almond shaped or oval shaped. Starting to look like fish now, aren't they? Now, koi fish often have kind of a little thing right here where their head kind of connects to their back. So let's put that little separation line there. Kind of looks like a little stretched out M. Kind of a little eyebrow on each fish. And then lastly, they usually have a fin going right down the middle of their back. So let's make a line starting right about here, and it curves with the the body of the fish right about like that on each side. Right about there, and it curves right down the middle of the fish, just like that. So the fish in my brother's pond know that blue heron like to eat them. So whenever a blue heron comes and lands in their pond, they all swim down to the bottom and hide in the dark at the bottom of the pool so he can't get them. Raccoons too. Koi have to always be looking out for raccoons. Okay, let's put a fin on the back of our fish. So it starts out big and then it kind of gets smaller as it goes to the tip. So we're going to start out kind of with a big fin, a line that goes back, and then it waves, wavy, wavy line down to the end of that line that we drew. So basically just kind of like little mountains, starting out big, and then the mountains get smaller and smaller as they get closer to the end of the tail. Those are some pretty nice koi. If you want to, you could give them a few scales, little fish scales like this, just here and there, not all over their whole body. A few little scales. And you could draw a lily pad. Let's see, for a lily pad, it's kind of a circle, more like a C shape, because you don't want to make a full circle. Well, you could make a full circle. Or you could make kind of a C shape and then make it look kind of like a pizza that's missing a piece, or a Pac-Man, so that it's got that opening there, and then you can do little lines coming out from the center. It's a nice little lily pad. Let's do a little lily pad up here that has a flower in it. So first we'll draw the flower. So a lily pad flower, if we're looking down at the fish, we're looking down through the water at the fish. So we would be looking down at the lily pad from above. So it's kind of like a little star. Just make a flower, give it some extra petals, because lily pads tend to have lots of petals. Just little triangle, jagged triangle shapes radiating out from the center. And then you can put your C shape around it. There's my C. And make two lines going in. And I've got a lily pad. So this is our basic koi drawing. If you want to paint that later, that is great. You probably want to use Sharpie to outline all the pencil lines that you want to show up after you paint it. So if you want to do that now, we're going to move on to our more complicated, more advanced koi fish now. But if you don't want to do the more advanced one, you can just work on outlining these little fish in Sharpie so that after you paint them, the lines will show. All right, so this next koi fish is a little more advanced and a little more realistic looking. So we're going to start out by doing an oval shape, and that will be the main body of the fish. So it depends on how large you want your fish to be. We are going to paint water around the fish. You probably want your fish to take up about this much of your paper. So if I want my fish to take up about this much of my paper, I want the oval that I start with, and draw the oval lightly because we're going to erase it later. This is just a guide to help you get the fish right. So lightly draw an oval. I'm thinking about like that. Almost, yeah, maybe kind of an egg shape. About that size. Now I'm going to draw a small circle up above and kind of to the side, to the right, and that's going to show me where his tail curves. So I'm going to put a smaller circle right there. Okay, this is just to kind of help us guide us through drawing the fish. All right, now we're going to do a curved line that goes through both of those circles. I'm kind of doing this from the side. So this line shows us how the fish moves. He's twisting in the water. So this will be the twist of his tail. All right, so you want that curved line, looks like a boomerang, going right through the little circle and down through the middle of the big circle. That'll be his spine, for the backbone of the fish. So next thing we want to do is locate where we want his mouth to be and just put a little straight line there. So I think right about down here, a couple inches from there. Let's put a straight line. Let's just have this line continue a few inches on and put a straight line there. That's kind of where his nose is going to be. So we've got our curved line that goes through the little circle and down through the middle of the big egg shape. Little few inches past it, and then we put a straight line here, kind of is parallel to the bottom of the oval, see? Kind of perpendicular to this line, because that's going to be the nose of our fish, or the mouth of our fish. So koi come in lots of different shapes and colors and sizes, and my brother says his favorite koi that he owns is called a butterfly koi. And the reason it's called a butterfly koi is because it has very long fins and a tail that just swishes gracefully through the water like the wings of a butterfly or the wings of a bird. And it almost, he says, looks like when you swish your hair in the swimming pool or the bathtub. He said it's just graceful like that. And it's just really nice to sit and watch the butterfly koi swimming around in his pond. So if you want to make yours a butterfly koi, when we get to the fin part, you can do that. You can give it really long, flowy fins and tail. Right now, we're not to that part yet. We are going to connect the nose or the mouth to this part, which is kind of the, fish don't have a chest. It's kind of the torso of the fish. All right, so we're going to do a little curved line. It's going to, don't draw yet, just watch me. It's going to kind of go up, and then it's going to come out and connect just like that. So curve up and out like that. So it's kind of a, I don't know, looks like the bottom of a vase or a, what does that look like to you? Anyway, this is going to be where his eyes go. It almost looks like the bottom of a cup or something. Now we're going to connect this part of the body to this part of the body. So keep your line like right on the outside of the oval. That's your guide. And you want to come on, follow the curve. So this is going to be parallel to this. So you're curving with this line up until you meet the outside edge of the small circle. So you're taking your pencil from the outside edge of the oval up in a curve to the outside edge of the small circle. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side to create the body of the fish. We're going to start on the outside edge of the big oval, and we're going to make a curved line that goes up and meets the outside edge of the small circle. Well, see, it's starting to really look like the shape of a koi fish, isn't it? But now his tail curves, so it gets a little more complicated. Let's see. We want his tail to curve. If this is his backbone, then we want his tail to curve kind of equally. Well, it's going to be a little skinnier on this side because it's kind of foreshortened. But we're going to take this line and we're just going to continue up over the top of the circle and kind of it's closer and closer to that line as we get closer to the end. So it's kind of parallel to that line here, but then it curves around and follows that curve until they get a little bit closer right there. And on this side, we're going to be closer to the spine on this side. We're going to draw another line that curves and goes to the same point, but it's not going to be as far away because we want to give the illusion that the tail is curving. So we're going to start here on the outside of the circle, go up just a little bit and follow that curve, but get pretty close. All right, so now you've got a nice kind of a, looks like, not really a banana, but you've got a nice curved shape here. What? Looks like an eel. Oh, it looks like an eel, my daughter says. Looks like an eel, but it won't be an eel forever. All right, so if you have got that part done, then let's go ahead and add a tail. Now you're just penciling this in lightly. You're gonna go over it later with Sharpie. So if you make a mistake or two, don't worry too much about erasing, because when you go over it in Sharpie, you can just not Sharpie the parts that you don't like, just Sharpie the parts that you want to show up. So for the tail, you might lightly draw the shape of the tail first and then embellish it later. So you might want to first kind of lightly make what you think the shape of the tail should be. Maybe kind of a triangle like that. Just real lightly to give you a guideline. And then once you're happy with the size and shape, you can go back with your pencil and lightly add some more lines. I like mine to kind of curve and flow out. Maybe be a little longer here and a little shorter here. See, that one's longer. And then I like it to kind of come in like that. Kind of looks like a tulip. And then I might put some little curved lines in the tail going down to make it look more like it's moving. So I can't erase this because it's chalk. I can kind of smudge it with my finger. Let's go ahead and give him fins on the side so that he can actually swim. So right about here, where his head meets this oval, let's make a fin that comes right out to the side. So just first of all, just make a curved line like that on this side, and then right across from it, make another curved line on this side. It should be curving back. So back from his head, so up. And if you want to make the fins really long and flowy, you can, or you can make your fins really kind of short and choppy like this. Straight line across and then another curved line coming in. Or you can make your fins more feathery, like that. Almost like a bird's wing. It's up to you. Just some light lines. Okay. Now, a koi has lots of fins. He's got more fins. So there's some smaller fins back here, kind of underneath of him. So once again, if you want to do kind of short, choppy fins like that, not choppy, but more straight edges, you can. Or you can do kind of more feathery. It's up to you. So two kinds of fins, but they'll be in about that location. That one's back a little farther than this one. I think I should have put that one back farther. They're not exactly right across from each other. That's okay. They also have a fin on their back. So in just a minute, we'll do that one. Let's see. I wonder if any of you have goldfish at home, because goldfish are kind of a lot like koi in a way. And in fact, goldfish and koi, I think, sometimes have little fishies together, and they kind of mix, they cross-pollinate kind of, and then you end up with a goldfish koi. But they also can be really big if they have a big pond to grow in. The goldfish that we have at home don't get very big because they're in a small tank. But if you put them in a big pond and they manage to avoid all the herons and raccoons, they can get pretty big and live for like, I don't know, 20 years. Kind of similar. So if you have any goldfish, you might look at them to get ideas for your koi. All right, so on the back, on the spine, I think we want the fin on its back to start right about here on the spine. And it's big at first, and then it gets smaller, just like the little fish that we did. The fin was larger, closer to the head, and then it got smaller as it went back towards the tail. So we're going to go ahead and start right about here behind, kind of behind the two front fins. And we're going to have a fin going back. It's kind of big, like fire, kind of like flames of fire. And it just gets smaller as it goes back. So you're kind of going like this to create that fin. big flame of fire, and they get smaller and smaller. And maybe you don't want a solid line. Maybe you want a kind of a soft line there to show the bottom of the fin. You can do some of those. Of course, if you want to have a more straight kind of fin, you could just have your fin kind of go like that and not have all the jags in it that look like flames. Just kind of more of a big, one big fin, all connected, if you want to. It's up to you. So now he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fins. I think we're done with fins. The next thing we're going to do is his head. So I think koi sometimes have that separation. Once again, that right there kind of separates their head from their body. There's this line here that shows a separation between the head and the body of the koi, and that's what we're going to do next on our koi here. But we're going to make it a little more curved. So we're going to start right about here where this fin is, and we're going to kind of go up and then curve down. Our lowest point is going to be right there where that spine goes through the head. And then it's going to do the same thing on this side, curve up and then down to meet the side. So you've kind of created this kind of an M to separate the face from the body. Now you want to give your koi some eyes. So probably one just about here on the side of his head. They're right on the side. This one maybe sticking out a little bit on this side. So maybe a little bump sticking out from the face. And maybe this one's more centered inside the face. Is it looking like a koi? I hope so. So now I think my lips are too sharp. They're too geometrical. They're too square. I'm going to soften them up. So I'm going to soften those edges and then put a little line right there to show that those are his lips. So I kind of soften around the sharp edges and just put that curved line right there. Some of you may have seen koi that have kind of whiskers. Some do, some don't. I think it's kind of fun to put the whiskers on because they're very flowy and they give the picture a little more grace. So we're going to give him some whiskers. So you can give him little short whiskers like that, or you could give your koi some long whiskers like this. They kind of flow back. You swimming through the water. You could give him 2 sets of whiskers if you want, one big and one small. I have seen some koi that have both. So that is about all there is to drawing our koi. If you want to put a few scales on, like we did with the first koi, you could, just a few. You don't have to cover your entire koi, but as you get closer to the end, the scales get tinier. They're bigger up here where the fish is wide, and then they get smaller down here where the fish is narrow. You could also now, if you want to, put some bubbles. My paper's getting messy because I've got all these things everywhere, but you could put a few bubbles, maybe coming out of the fish's mouth or created by his movement through the water. A few bubbles here and there, some big, some small. You could do a lily pad in this picture too if you wanted to. Maybe put a little lily pad up here. And you know, if you want, they don't have to be so round. Lily pads sometimes are kind of misshapen like this. I was making them perfectly round before, so it'd be easier, but it's kind of nice to make them kind of a little squiggly because they look kind of more like a plant that way. And if you want to put a flower on it, you can. You don't have to. A little star, kind of star flower. That'll look nice when we paint it. So I think we're done with the drawing part. I am going to move my camera around so that you can see me painting the koi. Because if I were to try and watercolor this, all the paint would just run right off the canvas. So I'm going to have to put my paper down on the table, and I'm going to move my camera. And while I'm doing that, you should take a Sharpie. It could be a thin Sharpie or whatever you have, but it should be a Sharpie. If you don't have a Sharpie, probably shouldn't do it, because if it's just a regular marker, when we watercolor the koi, it might bleed. So take a Sharpie if you have one and trace over the pencil marks that you want to keep. We don't want to keep this oval, and we don't want to trace this circle. You probably want to erase that circle and that oval as best you can, and then just trace what you want to keep. And when you trace the tail and the fins, just do it real lightly. Just do it real light so that it's kind of graceful and feathery looking. So go ahead and trace your koi all over and your lily pad so that you'll be ready to paint. And go ahead and get paint brushes and some paper towels and some water. And I'm just using these again today. You can have liquid watercolors, but these are just easier. So if you have either kind is fine. So I'll see you in just a moment. That's something you could do sometimes if you want to do watercolor on your own. If you tape all around all the edges of your watercolor paper, then it'll keep it flat. Because when you put the water on, the paper does tend to kind of curl up. But this keeps it flat, so it's kind of nice to do that if you can, but I don't think we have time for that right now. I didn't tell you all to get tape, so that wasn't fair. But I think what we're going to do is, we'll start with the water, actually. Let's do the water first, and then do the koi. So what we want to do is I'm going to use my big paintbrush for the water. So I'm going to get it wet, and I'm just going to paint the lily pads and the water with water. Don't paint your fish. We're just getting the water around the fish, not putting any water on the fish right now. We are brushing plain, clear water all around the fish, because we're doing the wet on wet technique of watercolor. Can everyone see my fish? This is a lighter fish. This is not the same fish I just drew, and it's lighter pencil, so I hope everyone can see it and it's not too light. Anna? Can you see this? Is it too light?
The water?
No, the drawing.
No, I can see, it's fine.
Okay. So now I'm going to take some blue, and any blue you want. Take your wet paintbrush and rub it in your blue paint, and then I'm just going to touch. Ooh, look at that. So pretty. That's a dark blue. I'm going to touch that down in a few places. And then I think I'll get my brush wet again, and I'll get a light blue and see what that does. Let me get a lighter blue and touch that down in a few places. Ooh, see how it's spreading? Because our paper was wet, now the paint is just spreading everywhere. It's really nice. I might brush a little bit in places, not just dab. You can dab and brush. I think I'm going to brush some of this light blue around a bit on the wet water. So you might want to do that too. Take a light blue and brush some around. Make sure you got lots of water on your brush. You want that paint to really be watery. I keep dipping mine. Each time I dip it in the water, then I dip it in the paint, and then I put it on the paper. So I took, after I got I'm not putting any water on my fish still. I brushed water all around the fish, and then I took some light blue, got it real wet, and I painted light blue around here and there. It doesn't have to be perfectly covered every single little spot on your page. So I think it'd be really nice if we had some different colors in our water and it wasn't just one color of blue. So after you color the light blue on, you can rinse your brush and you could get a dark blue or even a purple. I think I'm going to go for a purple next. And you can just, you don't brush it on, you just dab it while it's still wet. I'm going to put a few little dabs of purple here and there and see what happens. While you're catching up, I'm just going to watch my purple because it's kind of just spreads the longer I look at it. It just keeps kind of spreading in the water. And it kind of gives the impression that there's shadows on the water or there's little stones under the water. Just gives it a more variety and makes it look more interesting than just having the water all one color. So you can play with that and do whatever colors. Oh, you know what? I might even try a little green because sometimes water is really green, isn't it? I've got a lot of greens here. I think I'll choose this kind of spring green and I'm going to put some there. Ooh, I like that. Maybe a little bit here. I'm not brushing it. I'm just touching it, just dabbing it on, and then it spreads by itself because my paper is so wet. Is that working for you? I hope so. You never know with watercolor what's going to happen. Sometimes it's a surprise because the water just kind of runs and does its own thing. I think I'm going to go ahead and color my water lilies. And of course, if you're not done with your water yet and you're not ready to go on to the water lilies yet, that's okay. You could do your water lilies later. But I have a little water lily here. Uh-oh, look what happened. It's too wet. I think I better wait to do my water lilies. It's gonna run. Have to wait on that one. So, now when you paint your koi, I'm not gonna paint it yet, I'm just gonna talk about it. Sometimes koi have spots, kind of like cows have spots. And I put a little spot on my koi right here. I drew a little spot there, and I drew a little spot here that goes under his fin, and I drew a little spot here. And sometimes koi are white and orange, or sometimes they're black or gray or red or yellow. They come in lots of different colors. They're not just boring green like salmon. Although salmon I guess they can be pretty too, but they're bright, bright colors, like spring colors. I think they can even be pink. So I might make mine yellow and then give him some orange spots. And then his fins could be a different color than his body. So it's up to you, whatever colors you think would look nice on your koi. So we're not going to put water on the koi. We're going to paint wet on dry. So the paper is going to stay dry and we're going to get our paintbrush wet. So I'm using a smaller paintbrush for the koi. I use this big one for the water. I'm using a smaller one for the koi. So I'm going to get some water on my brush and I'm going to get some yellow paint. Lots of yellow. And I'm going to start painting my koi. Whoa, that is so sunshiny bright. We could use some sunshine around here, couldn't we? It's been kind of rainy. I've been trying to go outside for a walk every day. And yesterday I had to wear, oh, look at that. It's getting too dry. I need to put a little more paint on my brush and get some more yellow. Okay, I'll continue over here. I had to wear a rain gear out yesterday. I had this plastic coat over top of my coat because it was just raining so hard, but oops, I painted my spot. Oh well, orange is darker than yellow, so it'll cover. But it is nice to get out every day just a little bit, get some exercise outside. So his tail his body kind of goes into his tail a little bit, You don't want to just cut his tail off right there. I mean, cut his body off right there. You want his body to go into his tail a little bit. Can I see this whole thing, I hope? Mm-hmm. All right. I think I will make his head a lighter yellow. You could do yours whatever color you want. I'm going to do a real light yellow. And I think I'm going to leave that spot white on his head. So I'm going to do like a lemon yellow on his lips and his head. In my palette, I have this really nice palette that my friend gave me that has all kinds of colors. It's really nice. But if you only have the small peacock paints with limited colors, it's kind of hard to mix watercolors when they're in this form. But you could try. You could try to mix some white with some yellow and come up with a lighter yellow if you wanted to. That might work. Mix some white and some yellow. It's up to you. Or use a different color. So I think, I think I will use the orange next for his spots. So I'm going to get some orange. My color choices are just random. I did not plan them out in advance. So I don't know if they're going to turn out great, but you don't have to follow me. You can do what you want. You might have a better idea than I do as to what color would look good on this koi. So coloring in the spots that I drew. You know, I think I kind of want to color the spot on his head. I don't think I want to leave it white. I'll color that orange too. Now the reason I wanted you to trace your fish in Sharpie is because sometimes when you watercolor, the pencil marks kind of disappear. They get really light. Like see right here, you can hardly see those pencil marks anymore. And we don't want our fish to disappear. We want to be able to see them. So it was nice to do that. But that's kind of a basic watercolor. You might have a little, oops, see right here, a little bit of my fish is bleeding into my water. So I can just take my paper towel and I can just dab that and soak most of it up. I can't decide what color his fins should be. Maybe his fins should be, I don't want him to be too, I don't want him to be like a clownfish. So I don't want to use too many colors on him. Maybe his fins should just be a light orange. Okay, let's try a light orange, lighter orange. See how that looks. It kind of looks like the same as the other orange, but that's okay. With watercolor, if you want something to look lighter, you just rinse some of the paint off of your brush and just kind of spread it, and it lightens the color. So I just won't put as much paint on. I'll put some water on my brush and just a tiny bit of paint, and then it looks lighter. See that? Less paint, more water lightens the color. So I'm gonna get some more water and just a dab, a tiny dab of paint. Ooh, very light. I think that looks good. More water, tiny dab of paint. And I'm guessing the tail and the fins would be the same color on most koi. Could be wrong, but so sometimes if you see a bunch of koi in a pond and they're all different colors, it's just so beautiful to see them all swimming together, swimming around together, all the colors swirling in the water. And I think I'll make his whiskers the same color as his head. That light yellow color. Got to be careful because it's kind of wet around those whiskers. Might bleed out a little bit. That's okay. I forgot this fin on his back. How could I forget that one? Okay, so I need more water on my brush, And I like to dab my brush. I get water on my brush, and then I like to sometimes between colors clean off my brush and dab it on my paper towel, and then get more water on my brush and dab it in the color I want. So that's just between colors. I like to dry it off a little bit. Well, I hope that your koi are turning out nice. Mine is certainly bright. Bring us some cheer on this dreary day. You know, I didn't color in the pupils of my koi. You could color those in with Sharpie. That might be the better option, but I'm going to get just a little bit of water on my brush. My brush is practically dry. I'm just getting it, it's just damp, and I'm going to get some black because I don't want it to run all over the place. So I don't want it to be wet. And then I'm going to just dab a little black. Oh, that's working because my brush wasn't very wet. So my brush was pretty dry, and I just dabbed it in the black paint, and now I can do the pupils of my fish, and they won't run everywhere. Great. This is turning out pretty cool. I wonder if my lily pads are ready for me to paint now, or if the water's still too heavy. You can keep working on your fish. I'm going to go ahead and see if my lily pads can be finished. Let's see. Here's one over here I didn't get yet. It's a little better. I'm just not going to put a lot of water on my brush. I want my brush to be kind of dry because the paper is super wet. We don't need it to get any wetter because it'll spread everywhere that I don't want it to spread. And I'll add a little bit more paint to this one. It got too light. Who knows what color lily pads are? I mean, lily pad flowers. I don't even know what those are called. Lilies, maybe? I'm gonna get some pink because all the ones I've seen are either white or pink. Oh, that's pretty wet. Oh, that's what happens. After it dries, I can take my Sharpie and I can trace around it. I can trace the flower that I want and it will look nice.